We have here our example of pages about the pond, and we have separate pages on frogs, ducks and the heron. And it might be nice if there was a way to have a single page with more text and more pictures on. Panel pages are a way to do this. I'll demonstrate the idea of panel pages by changing the content that we have here about the pond into a panel page. The first thing we need to do is to sign in. Once you have signed in, the familiar administrative menu will appear. Add content will appear in the menu in the sidebar, as well, if you have the privileges, in an extra menu at the head of the screen. I'm now going to go to the Add Content menu, and we have a number of options on the Add Content menu, one of which is to add a panel layout broken up into rows and columns. And the options to choose from, well, there's quite a lot of options, but generally you want the responsive panels because these work really well on mobile phones and tablets. I'm going to choose one of the 2-column styles here, and I'm going to choose the 2-column brick. You can change the actual layout at any time, so you can add content and then experiment to see what sort of format suits you. We're going to have to give this a title, so I'm going to give it a title, My Pond. And there's two sorts of editors. They're called renderers here, the standard and the in-place editor. Often the in-place editor is much easier to use, but I will cover both editors in this video. So we're going to click the in-place editor, and we're going to provide a menu link, and we're going to put it in the main menu, and we're going to move it quite a long way to the right of the menu by making it quite heavy. Heavy things sink to the right or sink down, and now we're just going to save. And here we have an empty panel. So what we're going to do now is add content to our panel page. Now there's two ways to add content. The standard editor you reach by going to panel content, and I will go to that later, but a much nicer way is to go down to the bottom of the page and click on the item Customize this page. Wherever you see this little wheel in the content management system Drupal, it always means action. So we're going to click on the Customize this page, and the editor will open, and we can now see some boxes which are where we can post content. And I'm going to start off by putting the content all in the top box. This is the Add Content menu. Now what we're going to do now is add an existing node. Everything on Drupal on the content management systems a node, so we're going to find the pages that we previously created. So we're going to look for the page pond, and if we start to type pond in, there is pond. We're going to override the title. You can experiment with that. Often we don't want the individual title pages to the title of the pages to appear. Leave all these boxes unchecked. Experiment with them. The build mode teaser is like literally a little teaser, a summary of the node, and we want full content, and we're going to click finish, and suddenly we find our content has appeared. Now what we're going to do now is add the rest of the content really quickly. And now the next one was frogs. Here's frogs. We're going to override the title, add it as full content, and finish. And we're going to do the same for ducks as well. So you can see here, to use panel pages you do need to have previously created the content. But once you've got the content in, it's really quick and easy to add it. And the final thing was the heron. By now you've noticed that the order of the content is not the order that you perhaps wanted, certainly not the same order that we had on our other page. So we click finish. So what we're going to do is just drag things into the right order. We want this at the top, so we go to the top and we add this into the top position, and then the next one was frogs, so we lift the frogs up and we drag the heron down to the bottom, and now we've got our content in the right order: pond, frogs, ducks, heron. Really important, save. If you do not save, you'll lose all of your content. It'll all go back to as it was. And what we've done now, we have a panel page with our text and our photos all alongside one another, and this will render extremely well if we view it on a smartphone or tablet. And I'm going to just log out now so you can see what it looks like on the system. So here we have a very simple, quick and easy layout about the pond with lots of text. Is there lots of text? There's not a lot of text, but text and photographs all on the same page. I said I was going to show you the standard editor, which is very similar. So the first thing you have to do is to sign in. Once we've signed in, we see our familiar menus. We've got our add content, admin menu at the top. We've also got the customize this page, change layout at the bottom, and we have a number of options here across the middle of the screen, one of which is panel content. Notice as well we've got basic edit, panel layout. We can change all the options, but what we're going to do is click on the panel content. It's a similar sort of menu, not as visually pleasing, and if we were to want to add content, what we would do, we'd look for a little action wheel and click add content, and lo and behold, we're into exactly the same add content menu as before. So there's, in some ways, there's very little difference between this menu, this way of editing content, and the in-place editor. We just lose the really nice what you see is what you get options. Dragging content into different order is exactly the same as before. You have to save it to make sure that you've saved all your changes or you lose them, and I've just saved it. And if we go down to the bottom, we have a live preview, which is a pretty good rendering of what that page will actually look like. So there you go. The standard editor is very similar, but not as pleasing to use. And you notice as well you have a number of options associated with each of your pieces of content, and if you wanted to remove something, you just go to the bottom and remove that content. That doesn't delete it, and that's really it. The conditional thing, both types of menus said conditional content. In the sort of level of editing we're talking about, you can ignore this, but if one wants to make content that perhaps changes with the time of year or some other sort of cue, you would use a panel page and some rules to make the content appear and disappear. And that's really it. That's a very basic and very quick introduction to panel pages. To do more complicated effects, we'll need to invoke the use of mini panels, and mini panels are like a little mini panel page, so we can lay things out on the mini panel and then insert that mini panel into a panel page, and in this way we can get really complex layouts without the need to do any programming at all. So I shall just sign out now because that's good practice, and go back to our page. So this is our panel page. I hope you found this video useful.